Is there any one thing you admire about Google's catch-up in the AI race? Because 10 years ago, they were out of the water.
Well, 10 years ago, Google was the only serious AI effort.
5 years ago, maybe.
Maybe 3 years ago, when we launched ChatGPT, they were then way out of it. But the first thing I admire about Google is Demis and the Google team started working on AI before anyone else in the modern era with a lot of conviction. And I think without their inspiration, we certainly wouldn't be here. So that's one thing I admire. And then a second thing more recently is their relentless focus and execution and ability to really scale the model after being pretty far behind is quite impressive.
Okay. Were you surprised when Apple partnered with Google for Siri?
Not particularly.
Okay. The one country that is by and large on the right path for regulation on AI?
I don't think any of us know the answer to that yet. A thing that I'm happy about is countries are trying different approaches. And I think this is a good thing about many sovereign powers in the world. We will get to observe over the next few years very different approaches and see what works and what doesn't. And pretty quickly, I believe the world will move towards more of what works. But I'm grateful for the experimentation and different countries trying different things.
Okay. So a short game that I'll give you some criticisms of AI. And you give me a short defense of each of these criticisms. So the first,
I might not have one for some, but
you
we
might
can
not
try
have one
this.
for some. That's fine. And there's so many questions that you can always duck or pass. Too much concentration of power.
Fair, unless we push super hard to democratize, and I think everyone in the world needs to hold countries and companies to this threshold of you don't get to say concentration of power in the name of safety. We don't want that trade. It's got to be democratized.
Okay. The amount of natural resources that are going into the data centers, the amount of water, the amount of...
Water is totally fake. It used to be true. We used to do evaporative cooling in data centers, but now that we don't do that, you see these things on the internet where don't use ChatGPT, it's 17 gallons of water for each query or whatever. This is completely untrue, totally insane, no connection to reality. What is fair, though, is the energy consumption, not per query, but in total, because the world is now using so much AI, is real, and we need to move towards nuclear or wind and solar very quickly.
There was we had Bill Gates last year, and I asked him this question, and he gave a very interesting statistic. At that time, apparently, we calculated that there were 10 iPhone worth of battery would go for every ChatGPT query. And now it's come down to one iPhone or 1.5 iPhone battery life's worth of energy for every ChatGPT query. Is that correct?
There's no way it's anything close to that much.
It's much less than that?
Way, way, way less.
Okay, all right. But his theory was that the AIs will learn from human evolution to be more efficient in how much energy they consume.
One of the things that is always unfair in this comparison is people talk about how much energy it takes to train an AI model relative to how much it costs a human to do one inference query. But it also takes a lot of energy to train a human. It takes 20 years of life and all of the food you eat during that time before you get smart. And not only that, it took the very widespread evolution of the 100 billion people that have ever lived and learned not to get eaten by predators and learned how to figure out science and whatever to produce you, and then you took whatever you took. So the fair comparison is if you ask ChatGPT a question, how much energy does it take once its model is trained to answer that question versus a human? And probably AI has already caught up on an energy efficiency basis measured that way.
Wow, okay, fantastic. AI is making my kids dumber.
True for some kids. Look, when I hear kids talk about AI, there are definitely some kids who are like, this is great. I cheated my way through all of high school. I never did any homework, thank you. And I'm like, what's your plan for the rest of your life? And they're like, well, I assume I can still use ChatGPT to do my job. This is very bad. We absolutely have to still teach our kids to learn and to think and to be creative and to use these tools. That's not what most kids say, though. Most kids say, I can't believe what I can accomplish now. Look at this thing that I've just made. I've built these incredible new workflows. Sure, like I may use ChatGPT in the way you use Google when you were in high school to help with your homework. But now that I have this new tool, I'm doing these amazing things. I think we will need to find new ways to teach and evaluate in school to make sure every kid is brought along. But the potential of this technology, the ability to learn more, do more, I have no doubt about that. When I was in school, Google had just come out. And my middle school teacher was like, this is the worst thing ever. There's no point to teaching anymore. Why do you have to memorize, the date that someone in history was born if you could just look it up on Google? And my answer was, I think it's a complete waste of time to memorize what year someone was born. I will just go look that up on Google if I ever need to know it again, which usually you don't that often. And then I watched over the next few years, teachers come to peace with this, the education system evolve. And like always happens with new tools, the potential goes up and expectations go up. And we'll have to teach people to think harder, create more. And, I'm pretty sure that like a kid born today, when they're 18, graduating high school, will be able to do things that no one today can. And I think that's great.
The other criticism is that it's just not democratic enough, as in the people who want to pause AI don't have a voice. And I want to take this, double click on this question, is that where do you see the resistance coming from? Is it coming from the people who have experienced technology at its highest levels, and then they say, we're nervous, we want to pause? Or do you see the resistance coming from those who've never experienced and are nervous to experience, and then they feel the vulnerability?
I mean, it kind of comes from, parts of it come from everywhere. Although as more people use the technology, I think there's less of a let's totally pause it. People like it. And there's more of a, what is this going to mean? Can we have more of a voice? Can this go a little more slowly?
Okay. The one thing Silicon Valley should learn from Chinese technology.
Move fast.
Okay. The one thing Silicon Valley can learn from Indian technology.
Move faster.
The one real and one imagined fear of Chinese dominance in AI.
I think the imagined fear is that, the Chinese military is going to send 1 billion humanoid robots marching through the streets and overpower the US Army or something like that. And the real fear is, and I think that's like an example of fighting the last war and thinking it's going to be the same. I think the real fear is a new kind of war between nations that gets fought over the internet, where you influence people and hack into a bunch of critical infrastructure, and that feels totally possible.
That's a very scary reality, where we say. Surveillance state, all those kind of things, you don't?
Super worried about that. I think increasingly so, people are using fear of AI going wrong to justify a surveillance state. And I don't think the people doing that have fully thought through the downsides of the surveillance state.
Yeah. Okay. You urgently need to look something up. Your phone is discharged. You borrow my phone. The letter T on my touchpad doesn't work. So you can only key in Grok, Claude, Gemini, or DeepSeek.
I guess if I have to look something up, I pick Gemini.
Okay. All right.
For other things, I'd pick other models.
Okay. The most compelling reason you have moved from a not-for-profit to a capped profit to pretty much any revenue, including ads?
The need to democratize AI and the need to stay at the forefront of research, both of those require huge amounts of capital.
And do you think you're a research-first company or a product-first company?
Research-first company. The coolest thing about AI, I think, is that the great majority of making a good product is doing good research. We make a great model, the product is pretty good. The early version of ChatGPT was almost no product at all. It was like a text box that fed into a model and then put the output on the screen. So research to continue to push what a model is capable of is what enables everything else.
Okay. The one criticism about you that bothers you when you hear it?
I've heard basically like every possible criticism, and at some point, none of them bother you because you're just like, this has gotten so insane, so detached from truth. I guess the one that makes me the most sad is that like he's just doing it for the power. He doesn't really care about sort of trying to do something that's going to be helpful to the world.
What were you thinking when you decided not to take any equity in OpenAI? What was going in your mind at that time?
That was truly one of the dumbest things. As I say, this is someone who's made a lot of dumb decisions. The conspiracy theories that brought about, like the one I just mentioned, it was totally not worth it. We were like a nonprofit. There was like a kind of quirk of it where to be on the board of a nonprofit, you had to like be sort of disinterested. And I had been like very fortunate to have a successful career, and I was like, I don't really care here either way. But it was a very dumb thing.
And if somebody today were to offer and figure out a way for you to get into the cap table with sweat equity, would you take it?
I mean, at this point, I feel like so tired of the whole conversation and so trapped, I'm not sure what to do.
Okay.
It's like a lose-lose thing for me.
Okay. So one thing, in spite of all the differences you have with Elon Musk, the one thing you admire about him, is there any one thing you can put all the differences?
No, I'm going to think of something, but give me a minute. He's extremely good at physical engineering and also extremely good at getting people to perform incredibly well at their jobs.
Okay, super. Okay, ChatGPT is not known for its opinions. It's known for giving facts and factful answers back. So I'm going to ask your opinion on the news. There's been a lot of stuff in the news the last week. So we want your views on, would you support the government-ordered ban on social media for kids under 16?
I don't know if a total ban is right. Maybe it is. I think at least heavy restrictions would be good. I have a young child. I'm more interested in what I think are the very negative impacts of infinite scroll. I would like my kid not to just be one of those iPad kids going like this all of the time. So that seems very important. But yeah, probably social media for kids is something we have to be very careful with.
Okay. It seems the clouds of war are again upon us. A lot of talk about in Iran. If government were to ask to use AI companies like yours to help figure out how to get into war, how would you respond? Is Pentagon just another client for you, and they're the customer, you do what they ask, or do you draw a line somewhere?
I don't think AI systems should be used to make warfighting decisions. I don't think they're at a level of sophistication and reliability where this is a good idea. That said, like, we certainly want to support the government, and there's a lot of things we can do already. Someday there will be, I think, applications of this, really important applications of this to defense. But right now the models have clear limitations.
It was used for Maduro's capture, I believe. Is that true? Is that
No, I just don't know. I'm sure it was used in some ways. There are things that AI can do a great job of today. Like, I think using AI to analyze a huge amount of intelligence reports, probably a great use of AI. And maybe it was used some way like that.
Yeah. Your views on Claude safety chief Mrinang Sharma's dramatic resignation. I don't know if you followed that, but it made a lot of news.
I heard something about it.
Okay.
Like, they resigned and sent a letter about it's all useless or something.
Yeah, world's going to go to hell. I want to go write poetry. It was that direction. And but a lot of safety people are getting, I think, overwhelmed. I mean, that's the real piece that I wanted you to reflect on.
The part of it I agree with is the inside view at the companies of looking at what's going to happen. Like, the world is not prepared. We're going to have extremely capable models soon. It's going to be a faster takeoff than I originally thought. And that is stressful and anxiety-inducing.
Okay. Reflect a bit on the future of love and relationships. We keep hearing of people using AI agents to open up conversations on dating apps. How much of authenticity are we losing with love and relationships, or how much of it does it come in the way?
My bet would be that in the future we value human relationships much more. I think we are wired to do that. There will be some people who will fall in love with an AI or talk about their AI boyfriend or girlfriend or have AI send messages on dating apps for them. There will be some small percentage of the world that does that, and there will be a lot of breathless articles written about the end of society and all of that. But I think for almost everyone, in a world with more abundance, in a world where you can kind of have anything, human connection, human attention, human warmth will be one of the most valuable commodities, and I bet we will care much more about that in a world with AI.
Okay. You've invested in over 400 companies. Is that, I don't know if that's accurate? Or?
I mean, counting Y Combinator, like 3,000.
Wow, okay. Well, if you take all the Y Combinator investments, fair. But given the speed of AI growth and the disruption, where would you advise people in this room to invest today? Is there one place that you think they should?
The cool thing about a moment like this, when the ground is shaking, is sort of everything is up for grabs. Things are going to change so fast. Things are changing so fast. As we talked about earlier, you can have these one-person companies doing the things that used to take much bigger companies, but they can move faster, much more efficiently. So there will be all of the do the existing things better, and then there's a whole set of new things we just couldn't imagine before. It feels like the investment landscape is more open than it's ever been in any of my time as an adult. There were many times before where I felt like there was only one thing to invest in, there was only one frontier, and now it feels like you can kind of do whatever you want.
Okay. How far are we from ASI? You said AGI, we're a few years away. How far are we from ASI?
No, I said from ASI, we're a few years away.
So AGI, how far then?
I mean, AGI feels pretty close at this point.
Okay.
Like if you had asked me, I think if you had asked most people 6 years ago, what would you think if we had systems that could do new research on their own? What would you think if we had systems that could make an entire complex computer program on their own, that could do pretty sophisticated knowledge work in all these different fields? You know, you could have one system that could act as an AI doctor, lawyer, computer scientist. We would say, okay, that sounds pretty general and pretty intelligent. We get used to whatever we have, but just watching how much the technology we already have is accelerating us internally, I would say it's pretty close. And
okay.
Given what I now expect to be a faster takeoff, I think superintelligence is not that far off.
The one thing you'll never ask ChatGPT.
I think I would never ask it like how to be happy. I would rather ask like a wise person that.
That's a really interesting because one of the most uses of AI is for companionship, for that categorization of to the extent of therapy, and it's.
Yeah, I think like for sort of things like therapy or life advice, it can be pretty good. I think for like life philosophy, I'm still not going to take its
Okay, no, wonderful.
there.
Okay, wonderful. So which is less likely to happen? That the TSMC loses its monopoly over world chip manufacturing, or Musk and you become friends again? Which one is less likely, or more likely?
I think Musk and I becoming friends again is less likely. I feel like I have more control over that one. But both very unlikely things.
What is it about TSMC that the semiconductor Taiwan Semiconductor Corporation? What is it about it that makes it so? I mean, the whole world is kind of just.
They have just this relentless focus on getting better at what they do. It's this incredibly complex process, and they are just a machine at how they optimize and get better and learn at every level.
Okay. The most recent update you can share with us about your partnership with Johnny Ive. You're talking about these new cool devices. It's going to change the form factor of a cell phone, how you interact with machines. Is there anything you can share with us about that?
We have basically used computers for the same way for like 50 years. I think the work that Xerox PARC did to invent all the concepts of Windows and pointing devices and everything that we now take for granted is amazing. Putting it on a phone and adding multi-touch was also amazing. But fundamentally, it's been, a similar kind of idea. And then AI came along, and AI is stuck in that same form factor. But AI is like a quite different thing. AI, you can now talk to a computer in natural language, and it can do incredibly complex things for you. It can understand a huge amount of context, And the form factor of computers does not quite work for this. You know, I want to use a piece of technology that is observing my whole life and that has all the context and is maximally useful to me, and that is in my way the least, and that can not just be on or off, but these sort of subtle states in between. And we may fail at this. This is very hard, but I think we have a chance to make a new kind of products, a new family of products that were really designed around AI, that are kind of participating in your life and not in the way of it.
So that's the theory, but what is the product? I mean,
you'll have to wait and see.
Do we get, when can we see this? Because it's sounding very revolutionary, so.
I mean, we hope to be able to talk about it late this year, but
okay, sure.
Hardware is hard.
Okay. The one thing that governments should regulate and one thing they should avoid regulating.
This is not a competent answer. Generally speaking, I think it's probably a good idea for governments to focus on regulating the really potentially catastrophic issues and being more lenient on the less important issues until we understand them better.
Okay. Is there any one introspection or learning from your professional disagreements with any of the co-founders you've had?
It's hard to reduce that to a single soundbite. One thing that Greg and I have disagreed on a lot over the years is how much the company should focus versus do a lot of things. And I think I've been wrong about trying to do so many things, and I've really learned from him the importance of extremely narrow, deep focus.
Okay, interesting. One mistake, the biggest mistake you have seen corporates making in adopting AI?
I was in a meeting yesterday with a big company who was planning to spend 2026 strategizing, 2027 getting the company ready, and 2028 deploying. And that may work for other kinds of technology. Apparently, if you do like a giant ERP migration, that's the kind of timeline it takes. Doing that for AI will be a catastrophic mistake. The nimbleness required, the speed, the commitment required is just totally different.
Okay. Okay, get to the last piece here. Following heads of state want your opinion on one thing they need to do for their people's future in this new AI context. Xi Jinping, Narendra Modi, Putin, Trump. What's the one thing you tell each of them that they should do?
I would say the same thing to everyone, which is you've got to democratize this technology and put it in the hands of people. They're not all going to listen to that, obviously.
It's a fair answer, of course, but it's a safe answer. But is it a different thing that, you know, like a young country should do to an old country from a head of state perspective? I mean,
I feel increasingly radicalized on this point. I don't think any other strategy is going to work.
Okay, fair. If I can ask you to describe your relationship with Satya Nadella, because he calls OpenAI a frenemy.
I would just say friends.
Okay, cool. Your most expensive hire ever. You don't have to tell me who, but how much money did it cost? Because
we are no comparison to Meta here.
Okay. My last question now. Which of these 4 statements that you have made and you have now upgraded or revised do you regret? Statement 1, that India building a foundation model with $10 million is hopeless. Statement 2, that you will remain a not-for-profit.
Sorry,
I know you clarified that.
Yeah. I said anyone building. The point was anyone building a foundation model for $10 million.
Okay, so that's statement 1. Statement 2, you will remain a not-for-profit. Statement 3, too much AI regulation can stifle innovation. And statement 4, OpenAI won't accept advertising.
I don't think I ever said we won't accept advertising.
Sorry?
I don't think I ever said we won't accept advertising. I think maybe I said I had misgivings. I guess I'll pick the nonprofit one.
Okay, all right, super.